The most stable your outrigger is going to be is if you're on the left, it's going to be the most stable wind. It's going to be the most stable wind.
The blade in the water.
With the blade in the water, right? It's not going to be the most stable when you're leaning over all funky and crippled like this. That's actually not going to make it any more stable, because what's going to happen is now your center of mass is funky. Your center of mass is hanging somewhere over here. Ideally, you want your center of mass to be as close to your center of buoyancy as possible. You physics nerds out there, you probably already know what I'm talking about. Basically what that means is you want increased stability. You don't increase stability by moving your body weight, your mass over here. Because what that's going to do is now you're actually overbalanced, and if a weird or freaky bump comes, it's going to make you too unbalanced. This, which is what people instinctively do, and you see it a lot in six-mans, but you'll see it when people first start doing this because they're used to the six-man habits. So instead of trying to lean over, where all your weight is actually shooting out this direction, stay centered, be in control, be comfortable, put your paddle right back in the water and get your weight on that paddle, right? If you're pulling through the water, if you've got weight on your paddle, you're going to be stable on that side. So if it's a little unstable, get your paddle back in the water. Now on the right, once you're really comfortable, that same advice holds true, but there's something that you're going to want to learn to do regardless, because it makes surfing a lot more fun, and that's bracing. So again, when are we the least stable? When we're paddling on the right now.
Paddle in the air.
Paddles out of the water. So the easiest, quickest thing you can do is you are in danger of flipping as soon as you start to recover. If it comes up, all you have to do is brace. Now, for those of you that have whitewater experience, you already know what a brace basically looks like. You're going to make a mini ama out of your paddle face. Now, you can do it California style, where you drop it sticker side down, right? You immediately drop it and hold it. You can do it fancy Hawaiian style, where you flip it over and put it down. Comfort again, style, it's all up to you. Drop it. Right? When you first learn how to do it, an easy way to do it is to brace it against your leg. A lot of people advise doing it. You'll never actually do this in reality, but it's a good way to kind of get the idea of where the leverage is from. So when you first start practicing, if you've never practiced it, you can lever against your thigh, and then you'll feel that. And what'll happen is, as you go over, now you've got a mini ama. What I would suggest, a little easy drill for you, is every time you go paddling now, since I've convinced everybody to start paddling in the bay only until they get all their skills down, is every time do a little drill where every time you release, skim your blade across the water. Skim your blade across the water. Maybe every third or fourth time when you skim it across the water, slap it down, whether you need to or not. Slap it down, because what you're doing is you're building, again, this is going to be for the bio nerds and the psychology nerds, behavioralists, you're building neural pathways so that you do it skim, pull, skim, and maybe on the third one, boom. Do a couple more, boom. Just get used to doing it, boom. Then get comfortable with maybe just getting a little more weight on this hip and do it, boom. And feel it just pop up for just a second. You can do a nice long pull, maybe longer than you would normally pull with a little more weight. It'll come up, and you can put it right back down. So get used to that bracing. It's a huge skill. It's a big advantage. When you get really comfortable, and if you've watched some of the videos of the really fast, really talented guys, you'll get to the point where the same advice I gave you here, if it's coming up, put your blade in the water. You'll get comfortable enough. If it's coming up, put your blade in the water and keep it up, and keep putting your blade in the water and keep it up, right? That is for a clinic way down. I'm going to think that when we plant the paddle, it stays put. Right? The reason that we want to get into that frame of mind is because, just like you said, we want to focus on moving the canoe. If you're focused on moving the paddle, that's exactly what you're going to do. You're going to move the paddle. So even though the paddle moves, we want to focus on moving the canoe. So we are going to be under the assumption that when we plant this paddle, in our ideal scenario, it's going to stay exactly where it is. Okay, now comes the important part. when we plan it and it stays exactly where it is, we need to have it in a very specific position. So again, I'm not going to talk about technique or hand positioning or shoulder positioning or body positioning. What I'm going to talk about is I'm going to talk about the paddle itself relative to what's happening. When you're generating the force, right, you're applying the force to the paddle, and you want that force then to make your canoe move forward. Everybody's agreed upon that. When you're applying it, however your technique does it, where that force comes out is it comes out the blade face. That force is going to move directly perpendicular to your blade face. All right. So, and when that force moves directly perpendicular to your blade face, your canoe is going to move in direct opposite to that. So it's going to be polar opposite. So if we got it like this, that means our canoe is moving this way. So if I set my paddle like this, where's the force going? What direction?
Down.
Where's the canoe going?
Up.
If I go like this, where's the force going?
Back.
Canoe's going?
Forward.
If it's like this, where's the force going?
Up.
Where's the canoe going?
Down.
Of those three positions, which one do I never want to have happen?
That one.
That one.
You got it. You got it. So, well, that is true. Don't pull past your butt. Don't drag the paddle. But in a one-man, what you can do is you can release weight. So if we know all our work is being done from here to here, you don't have to pull your paddle out of the water here. You just have to stop pulling. Right? And it'll make sense if you envision what you're doing. If you're in a six-man, you're up in a position like this, and really you don't want to have all that extra drag. You don't necessarily need it. And so again, I'm not trying to contradict anything any of your coaches have ever told you. But now when you're seated in an OC1, it can be a little bit more disruptive to immediately jerk out at this point, right? Because what you're doing is you're coming through and we're moving, and we learned that now that we're moving, there's friction, there's drag. We want to reduce that drag. Now think of what your paddle's doing. You pull through here, you stop pulling, and you start to try and release. That's a lot of brakes going on if you try to release this way until you get it totally released and out, right? Your forward momentum putting on the brakes until it gets all the way out. So what you can do is, and it seems counterintuitive, because it seems like I'm telling you to leave it in longer for more brake, but if it's back here, right, if we're thinking about it traveling through space this way, traveling through water this way, there's less surface area, right, being offered, so it's actually less drag. So you can let it come back as long as you're not pulling, and then you can release back here. So it's
It almost
less,
floats up.
absolutely right. It's literally going to pop out and kick out, because what's going to happen is the buoyancy of the paddle and the weight coming off of your hull are going to kick it out for you. It's going to release. This is good work. This is good work. This is good work. This is good work on this particular blade face. All the rest is bad work. It doesn't matter if you do good work, good work, good work, good work, right? I'll turn this way so the cameras can get it. So good work, good work, good work, good work, or good work, good work, good work, good work. What's the difference really? That's going to come down. It's going to come down to, again, your individual technique that your coaches are teaching you, your style, but also your body's own physical limitations and abilities, right? So a good rule of thumb that I think most coaches would agree to is at your pedals, be buried at your pedals, and then finish. So, but I don't want to get into individual techniques because I don't want to promote one over another. Today, some of the drills we're going to do, we want to learn to use our legs as much as possible. So we're going to do a couple of drills that are going to get us to do that. So the first thing that we want to agree on is, and we want to have positive work. Now that we have positive work, what is going to move our canoe up to and hopefully beyond that paddle? And the answer to that is the big muscles, right? We want to use legs. We want to use the entirety of your midsection, that magical core, right? That buzzword, your lats. We want to get away from, obviously, your biceps, your rear delts. Little muscles, they burn out, they don't do a whole lot. So, how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to do a drill out there. Paddling is not about one specific muscle or two specific muscles or a couple of muscles. It's about learning to connect everything. We want to connect this paddle to this canoe. There's a long way to go to get from this paddle to this canoe. You start at your hands, you got to come all the way up your arms, all the way down your body, all the way out your legs to the canoe, and vice versa, right? All the way back up and out. So if at any point in time you're not engaging in that same unified movement, so if pieces are moving independently of each other, they're moving faster or slower, or they're not doing their job at all, wherever that happens, and again, I'm really walking a razor wire here of not getting into technique. Wherever that point happens, that's where you lose the connection between your paddle and your canoe. Right? Shooting through, reaching out, shooting through. You would do that instinctively as a child, right? We want to have that same full body motion. When you're adjusting your seat, when you're setting your seat for how you're going to sit in your canoe, the straighter your legs are, the more stable you're going to be. The more bent and tucked up your legs are, the less stable you're going to be. All right, so that would sound like being like this is really, really negative. Well, that's going to now apply to what we're about to talk about. The more bend you have to your knee, the more leg drive you get. The less bend, obviously, you have to your knee, the less leg drive you get. So this is more stable, less stable, more power, less power. Okay? So as far as where to set your seat, I can say to an extent, again, it's comfort. Somewhere between here and here. What we just talked about. We're going to think about the kid sitting on the skateboard trying to move himself forward. We're going to learn to, what I call, shoot the hips. Now, when you shoot the hips, if you just did that, you would get some good hull speed. You would get a lot of distance per pull, but it's not something I would suggest you go out and do during a race. People would probably laugh at you. And they would ask you where you got it from, and then they would laugh at me. Let's not have that happen. The next drill, though, is going to start making that movement more natural, right, to what we're trying to do. So you're absolutely right, Mary. If you're paddling on the right, you're going to be using right leg drive, right? It just makes sense. You can all visualize it from when you're sitting in a six-man. Well, now we're not sitting in a six-man anymore. Now we're sitting like this. So how do we get right leg drive? So I want everybody to go ahead and just put your feet out like this. I am not going to pull myself around. I'm just going to... Anybody see the difference? Anyone? Shout it out if you see it. What? I'm straightening my left leg, right? Because that's comfortable, right? This quad, pretty strong. All I have to do is just straighten this one, and when I straighten this one, if everything's connected, right? If I'm really focusing on using my entire body and everything is connected, if I straighten this leg, this hip goes back. If my midsection is strong and locked, when this hip goes back, this shoulder goes back. When they go back, this hip, this knee, this shoulder, this side of my rib cage all come forward. So now I don't have to pull myself around. I can just straighten my leg and I come around.
Looking out across the nighttime, the city winks a sleepless eye. Hear a voice and shake my window.